Helps if I start the recording for the YouTube VOD. That is a good thing to do. Ahoy, Banana Mobster. Welcome in. Welcome in. Hope you're all doing well. And welcome to this special showcase painting stream, where I have been very kindly recruited by the folks behind Backwards TTRPG to paint a mini for their upcoming Kickstarter project, which I'm very, very excited about. There is a link up at the top of the pinned comment. You can also do !backwards in the chat if you want to summon that link later on. But, you know, it's pinned, so it's right there. The Kickstarter is currently scheduled to launch sometime in October. So right now it is just, you know, go sign up to be notified when it goes live. Very much encourage you to go do that. Take a look so that you can get all of the information when it goes live. Just signing up to be notified is no commitment, and similar to, you know, we always say go just wish list indie titles on Steam, things like that. Same thing applies here. Go follow the Kickstarter, and that way, you know, it expresses interest and helps them get get more interest rolling in the very, very cool project that they have. Yeah, so I'm going to go. I've got some press releases that I can go through. There's some very fun written I can't speak, explanations. There we go. That's the word, of what these two new settings are. The Backwards. I'll get it right eventually. This American Gothic style horror setting it's a D20 based system. The D20 is used for everything with the exception of damage, from what I have read. So nice, simple and straightforward. There's a free get started thing on itch.io if you want to go and check that out. That's all linked from the Kickstarter as well, so just follow that link and you can find all of the additional information there. It seems really cool. It seems very cool. One of the things that drew me to wanting to work with this particular duo, it's only two people primarily working on the project, was as I'm sure is the case with many of you, when you hear things like American Gothic, especially in the TTRPG space, there's that little red flag that starts sounding in the back of your brain, right? Regarding, is this going to be well done? Is this going to be working with people who actually have lived experiences in these settings, or is it just going to be kind of racist? Pleased to say they have taken precautions in that area. They've worked with, you know, artists from indigenous populations. They've, excuse me as the noise goes past outside, done their due diligence in that area, you know, hiring appropriate consultants. So that's a good thing. Made me feel a lot better about it. They also, on their main page for the setting, have an explicit disclaimer about how, regardless of the areas of the US and the time period in which it is set, racism is not intended to be an aspect of this particular campaign. They are aware that that is not their lived experience, and so they are not touching it, which I think is probably the right way to do that. So the Kickstarter, up until now, they've mostly been focusing on books or digital, or I believe there are physical copies available as well. But this time they're doing miniatures, and that is where I came in. So they reached out to me to get this type of thing done, because, you know, that's kind of my jam. And I very much like the minis. So we've got the artwork over there on the right for the Gore, which is essentially a skinless humanoid creature. The artwork I felt looked very Attack on Titan. Love that whole design aesthetic, although, you know, actual human-sized instead of towering giant monsters. Excuse me as I grab a little bit of water here. I'm a little bit dehydrated today, so there we go. That's better. So all I've done a little bit of cleaning and priming on the mini, but otherwise it is pretty much as they sent it to me. And I haven't really planned this out too much. So what we're going to do with this is have some fun with it, kind of explore the mini together, see what the details are, and hopefully we'll come out with something cool and really gross looking as things go on. As I said, later on, I may, as I need to take time to let things dry and whatnot, take a break to read through some of the words are escaping me right now. Read through some of the press releases about the 2 new settings, one of which is set in the Northeast US, the other of which is set down in Florida. It is very pirate themed. I wonder why I stood out to them. Hey Lily, welcome in. Good time zone to you. So we are going to start very simply with this being a skinless human. And if I now bring this up to the camera so you can see, I've done a little bit of zenithal highlighting on it, or a zenithal prime, so we can get that nice shadow to really get some of that detail standing out ahead of time. So that should look quite nice. So what we're going to start with, I think, is we're just going to do a big overall covering of a deep red for that nice muscle tone. And then we're just going to kind of go from there. I'm going to try and avoid picking out some of the bone parts with this just to make my life a little bit easier later on. But I think as we get this on, it should start to really highlight some of this fun, detailed musculature that's in there. And there is a surprising amount of detail on this mini. So I think what we're going to start with, if I can figure out where it is in my, there it is. Hey Martimus, good time zone to you. Welcome in, welcome in. We are going to start out with some Vulpus Pink. This is a little contrast paint, which I think will do quite nicely for this. It's a deep, like, reddish purple, so I think that's going to be a real good base tone for this exposed muscle. But because it is a very delicate mini, I'm going to mix a little bit of contrast medium into it as well, just so that we don't clog up too badly any of the fun detail. So let's grab a slightly larger brush for this, I think, as I knock my brushes down. Again, I do apologize. It's actually quite nice out today. So, oh boy, as you may be able to tell, people are out with their ridiculous, loud motorcycles. I very much apologize. Just pretend it's the horrible noise the monster is making, and we'll just kind of go with that. That's what we will say that is. So let's get just a bit. So let's do 3 brush loads of Vulpus Pink. And then we're going to do the same with the contrast medium. Mix them together. It's just going to thin that Vulpus Pink down. Make sure that we don't overdo it. Go. Okay. Let's get that loaded up. Let's see how this goes. Just run that all over, and here we go. As you can, so this is what I was talking about. Thinning it down has gone a little more pink than I intended, but that's okay because we can add some red in there later on. But with it being so thinned, you can see how all these nice sinewy muscles are really starting to immediately pop out. I am so terribly sorry, and I am beyond ready to move. I am done living here. Beyond done. Hopefully, since I'm doing a local recording for a YouTube VOD as well, hopefully I can maybe try to edit some of that out, get some nice noise cancelling done. Okay. So Vulpus Pink may not have been the best choice for this, because as I've thinned it down, it has gone on very, very light, which is fine for an initial coat. What we're going to do is get it nice and gross and terrifying looking. So we'll mix together some other contrast paints as well. At least for right now, we're getting a good view of all of these nice muscles that are sculpted onto the mini. Which again, it came out 3D printed, and it's printed to a very nice standard. Lots of these little thin details are quite crisp, which is very, very nice to see. All right, that's coming along quite well there. I think what we'll do, let's grab another brushful. We'll thin that down. Let's shift the ratio just a little bit so we've got slightly less contrast medium. Let's try about 2:1 for a second run through. I think I went a little too cautious and didn't need to thin it quite as much as I did, but it's always good to go overly thinned and build it back up as opposed to go on way too thick. And now you've got all this detail clogged up. Yeah, okay, that's working. The fact that it's a second coat and I've shifted the ratio, that's making that go on a bit better. So this is going to come with this nice, like, deep purpley effect. And as that dries, we can then build up into some reds and some more, like, fleshy colors. But this is going to give us a good base to work on, I think. Again, I haven't really planned this out. I sat down and I thought about planning it out. But then I decided it would be more fun to just sort of dive in together and kind of work through the process, chat through it, because it would be a good way to kind of talk about the mini as I go through. But yeah, whilst that's going on, how is everyone doing? How's everyone's weekend kicking off? We had some massive thunderstorms here in New York over the last couple of days, so that has finally broken the worst of the heat. So it's a little more manageable today, which is well overdue. Nicely. It's starting to look really nice and disgusting. Look at that. That sinew, that muscle. That's fun. That's fun. As I mentioned before, I'm going to bring it up on this stream as well. One of the things that made me very pleased to work with Backwards was after the loss of Sanya, they proactively reached out to me to offer to reschedule this stream, which was originally supposed to be at the end of July. And that was very unexpected and very kind of them. So I feel really good about working with them with that degree of care and thought. I said proactive checking in. I'm not used to that, so that was very nice. Reading through the Marvel TTRPG, nice. I have not checked into that one myself. I hope it's fun. I hope it turns out to be a good time. I think what we're going to do, because the way I did the priming, the contrast with the Zenithal isn't really sticking into the belly too much, so we're going to go just straight contrast on there. Which again is fine, because I want that to be darker. But this is where that Zenithal helps, as we get that shading in the shell coats for free. We'll do the same, kind of under the pits, under the arm here, where it's mostly still primed in black. No. There. Try to just avoid some pooling. Good. All right, so we'll need to let that dry for a moment, but that's got a nice base to work from. I think that's going to work out pretty well. I'm pleased with that decision. Pleased with that choice. So let's pop the Vulpus back. We're not going to need that anymore, I don't think. Grab a quick bit of water. I think after stream I may take Kiros out for a bit of a longer walk whilst the weather is going to permit it, because his walks of late have been a little on the shorter side due to him not handling heat well. And to be honest, I don't handle heat well either, so I know how he feels. you know, and whilst that's going, so I need to let that dry for a bit. I think what we're also going to do is let's start getting a base tone onto this, well, base. Because what I didn't realize was going to be a thing is the base is sculpted too. I like how it's got like footprints built into it. We got what look like almost tire tracks going through it. So it's got some really fun stuff for us to work with on that. So let's start out with, and I want to use just a muddy base. So we're going to go with some Gargax sewer. Do I want I think Rattling Grime might be a bit too dark. Let's go with Gargax sewer. So I think anything else might be a little too dark. This we are just going to go straight from the pot because I'm only doing it on the base, so I don't need to worry over much. You can just sort of slap it on and move it around. Get again some of that nice detail on the base will start to really stand out. Or so. Yeah, with this very horror-themed setting, it's appropriate they've decided to launch the Kickstarter in October. I think that's going to work out quite nicely. Got that spooky season going. Hey, Sparks, welcome in, welcome in. How are you doing? Got some nice Halloween-y vibes for their horror-themed game. I say horror theme. I don't know that it's actually as horror themed. Like, American Gothic certainly inspires that, but I don't think it's. There's definitely those aspects to it as well. Like in these expansions, for example, the monsters are very much themed to the region. So, for example, in the New England-based expansion, Backwards, one of the creatures that is going to be in the module or in the book is the Headless Horseman, for example. That type of thing going in. And I've seen some of the promo art for Backwaters, the more Florida pirate-themed one, which has a wonderfully creepy parrot in it that I very much like to the appearance of. Alright, so we need to let that dry. This, of course, is the downside of doing this part as a stream as opposed to a tutorial video, is now I just have to kind of wait for this to dry before we move on to the next parts. Light there a bit so we can see just a bit more of that. It's starting to come in rather nicely. So let's start planning ahead whilst we wait for that to dry. So I definitely want to give... I think what we'll do is we'll mix over some Flesh Terrors Red, and we'll do that as almost a bit of a wash. And then we're going to need... We got these claws and teeth, so let me get some Steel Legion Drab as a base for that. And that, I think, will be good to start with. And hello, Stephen! Welcome in, Raiders! Hi, hi, hi. Hello, Stephen Raid. Welcome over, welcome over. Stephen does enjoy raiding nice people. And on Saturdays, he raids me, too. Kiwi Fruit, welcome in from the Stephen Raid. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. For any... I think most people who hang out in Stephen's chat are at least familiar with me, because he very kindly continues to show off my mug, on which note, cheers. Clink. And whilst we're waiting for that first coat to dry, now that we have the raid come in, this is an excellent time to go through that press release I was talking about. So, again, today's stream has been sponsored by the lovely, lovely folks at Backwards RPG. Their Kickstarter is linked in the pinned comment. It's going live in October, so right now all it is just the sign up for notifying when it goes live. And as I said at the top of the stream, similar to how we always say it helps out indie game developers, or video game developers rather, when you go and wishlist their stuff on Steam, because it's no commitment, but you're still expressing an interest. That helps them. Same type of thing applies here. Following that on Kickstarter is not an obligation, but lets people know that you're interested, and so helps them get more promotion. So do that. It's cool. So I'm gonna pull up the press kits. So yeah, to give the quick run through. So the Backwards universe already exists. It's available on itch.io. It's a D20 based system. 20-sided dice is used for everything other than damage. They've already got a couple of settings out there. This Kickstarter is to add 2 more. And will feature new character archetypes, items, and animal companions. The 2 existing ones are based in New Orleans and St. Louis. But these new 2 are based in New England and Florida. And I've got a nice little promo blurb for each of them. I'm going to read through because that's just fun for me and I want to try and do a terrible accent. So for Backwards, New England Gothic horror. Welcome to the Heartlands Ward, the political, cultural, and economic heart of the American lands. Well-guarded and well-maintained roads, grand urban centers, and safe, comfortable living. This is what the Heartlands promises in these hard and desperate times. It maintains an image. A blazing beacon in a chaotic world, the pinnacle of order. It is also a lie. The dark New England forests have flourished since the cataclysmic event known as the End, and they have grown twisted and hungry. The sinister tales of creatures stalking the woods and backwoods cults are more than mere fairy tales. Every year people go missing, even entire villages. The government institutions of the American lands are rotten, corrupted by wealth and aristocratic privilege. Local politicians grow bolder, more ambitious. Meanwhile, isolated communities are swallowed by the woods. Extremism is on the rise, and the ailing institutions of the Heartlands have little desire to recognize these problems, let alone address them. A revolution is brewing in the Heartlands, even if they refuse to admit it. So that's the blurb for the first one, Backwards, the New England-based setting, which is, the themes are Puritanism, witches and devils, based around the tales of Edgar Allan Poe, Washington Irving, Shirley Jackson, and Nathaniel Hawthorne are the inspirations. So you got things like the Headless Horseman making an appearance. And again, I said this at the top of the stream, but there's a specific note in there that Backwards will be reviewed by sensitivity readers, including readers with lived experience in New England. So they are making a solid effort to make sure that they find people who have these actual lived experiences and employ them as sensitivity consultants, which is exactly the right way to do it. And then the other one, I have a quick bit of tea before I go into back channels. Book number 2. Back channels, swashbuckling saltwater Gothic in the southeast. Welcome to the southeastern corner of the American lands, the Gulf Ward, or what's left of it. When the smoke cleared from a cataclysmic event called the End, major port cities and naval bases had sunk into oblivion, leaving a bevy of small ports along the southeastern seaboard to meet the fishing and shipping needs of a fledgling, re-emerging nation. Since then, the brave and reckless seafarers of the Gulf have faced the horrors of the deep, quickly adapting to the dangers that have emerged in the wake of the End. Mariners who scrape a living in these overwhelmed and unregulated ports have earned themselves a romantic and dangerous swashbuckling reputation amongst the rest of the American lands. And indeed, the line between sailor and pirate in the Gulf is razor thin, changing day by day. From the gator-filled swamps to the open sea to the coastal low country and Caribbean islands, the Heartland's bureaucrats hold little sway in the Gulf. Yankee laws were made to be broken. Sure, ships were built to be sailed. Grab your freedom by the gills, sailor. It's time we shove off and explore the back channels. And so that one is set in the Gulf Ward, which spans from Alabama to Georgia. It includes the coastal low country. And again, sensitivity readers with lived experience in Georgia, Florida, Alabama have been recruited for those. So, yeah. That's the press release flavor text for it. Again, you can see a lot more stuff. Yeah, the Kickstarter page does have links to the existing stuff, so you can kind of check it out. There's a a quick start on there as well if you want to take a look and get a bit of a sense. They also, what I really liked, had a solo little mini game you can play through. So if you want to play through it just by yourself to get a sense on it, you can do that, which I wish more games did that. I love the idea of having a little mini solo playthrough that you can do, like, especially as somebody who frequently is a forever GM. That really helps. Like, the ability to kind of get that player experience just by yourself really helps. So yeah. Alright, that looks like it's mostly dried, so we're going to go back to the Flesh Terror's Red now. We're going to give that another wash. We're going to do the contrast medium again. I'm going to go just 1-to-1 this time, because I overdid it previously. Again, I haven't really planned out this mini at all. I wanted to just kind of dive in and, you know, explore it with you all. This is a Gore. It is a fleshless humanoid monster. You can see over there on the left of the screen. Actually, this one might benefit from a little more thinning down because Flesh Terrors is a much more strong tone. The vibe from these I get is very Attack on Titan. I keep having that theme song in my head. Which, yeah, is not a bad thing. Okay, there we go. So, yeah. We're going to paint this over so we still get some of that purple showing through. But now we're getting this nice red in there as well. So that purple has made a nice base. I'm not going to go everywhere. I'm going to leave the purple showing through in some locations. And then we're going to gradually build this back up. But yeah, how was the rest of Palia? I have downloaded the game and done the character creation, but I haven't had time to go through it any more than that. I really need to. I heard about the particularly bad bug that they had, and so I was waiting for that to be resolved, but I think I heard that that's resolved now, so now I can dive in without having, you know, stuff stolen. So many games, so little time, right? It's a problem. Especially now I also want to go through and play more of On Guard. I still have to play through more of the rest of Stray Gods, which I started on stream and really enjoyed. Yeah. You know, the accursed day job always getting in the way of the stuff that I want to do, right? Ooh, pesto pasta salad. Nice. That sounds fun. Love the sound of that. Just kind of drizz that over. Again, letting some of the purple show through as it dries, but there we go. We're getting, look, it's getting quite a bit closer to that promo art now. So I think doing the Vulpus pink first was a good idea, just to establish that base. But the Flesh Terror is definitely, especially for these darker parts. And actually didn't do the zenithal perfectly on this. There's some parts where I didn't really highlight at all outside of the black, and I should have gone in there with more of a grey. But it's fine. It's fine. The end result is this thing is going to look super creepy and fleshless and horrible. And that's what we want. We want that, you know, the type of mini. And this is one of the things I really miss about DMing in person. When you get to slap a really fun mini that you've worked on down onto the table and watch your players just react in sheer panic. I miss that. I miss that level of torment of my players. You know, it's the part as the GM where you get to really redress the balance after they make fun of you for mispronouncing names. And ruin all of your carefully laid out plans. Since I didn't thin that down quite as much, that's not going to take quite as long to dry, so that's good. And we are, therefore, going to take a minute. Let's bust out that Steel Legion drab. And this will be a good base for the teeth and the claws, which I want to look super like browned and gross and just absolutely disgusting. Which is, it's fun to make, it's fun to paint minis that are supposed to look just gross, because you can have so much fun with them. I've been painting a lot of minis lately that are very kind of clean and armored, and they've got that kind of, you know, uniform aspect to it. It's been a while since I've gotten to paint something that's just gross, and it's so much fun. Because you could, with these, you could just slap things around, do some wet blending, merge stuff together, and it all looks fine, because it's supposed to look gross and disgusting. So, you know, you're just leaning into it. All right, let's make these nails look nice and long and vile. So these are going to go on. Again, this is just going to be a... base for the nails. I'll adjust the camera setting here real quick. It's not quite... focusing the way I want it to. There we go. That's better. It was focusing a little too much on my hand. So. Go. There we go. So that hand's now starting to get those claws. Stand out just a bit. Still a little dark, so you can't really tell too much. I have coming in something I backed on Kickstarter previously, which is one of the new like fancy Redgrass Games desk lights. I've heard very, very good things, and I'm very, very excited to give it a shot. Because at this point, probably the biggest weakness of my mini painting setup for streaming is lighting. Which is kind of a problem, because that's one of the most important things. So I'm very much looking forward to playing around with that and seeing how much it helps. Alright. There we go. Alright, so that's those in there. Let's now get into the teeth. Which we can see mainly there's these two really prominent fangs. I think those are the only two I really want to focus on. Let's focus on those two fangs. I'm not going to do anything around the feet because we're going to blend the feet into that mud later on. So I think that's pretty good for a base tone on the nail. Right. So, with that dried now, what I want to do is bust out Harrowburg Crimson, and this I want to, now we're going to do an actual more traditional wash, and this I'm going to run into some of the recesses, because we're going to start we got a bit of this with the contrast paint, but I think we can punch it up a little more. So where's my nice thin brush I like to use for these? Here we go. I think we can punch that up a bit. So I've got this nice thin liner brush I like to use for things like this. I guess, especially around here, because he got abs. In life, this Gore clearly paid attention to the core workout. Okay, we went a little far on that, so let's just move some of that away from the surface. Some of that into the crevices. Some of these areas where I really want the muscles to pop. We'll get some of this more as I go through and layer it up too, but yeah, for right now. I don't know the names of any of these muscles. People who are smarter than me can probably tell what all of these fancy muscle names are for. I don't know. I just know your pecs and your abs and your butt. Those are the muscles I know. Those are the muscles I care about. So. On the back here is kind of what I was talking about, where I maybe could have gone a little better with the zenithal. Because I did get very dark. Because my intention was that it was lurching out of the dark towards the light, so I focused very much on the light coming from a front angle. But I should have gone a little bit, just a little bit more grey on the back of the leg, but that's okay. It'll still work in the overall. It's up the butt. And then we're going to run down the spine, which that's going to get some bone going on it later, but I would say that, you know, that was a deliberate plan to not paint those with the rest of the nails and bone so that I could, you know, do this layering in, but the truth is I just forgot. Thank you, Sparks. Honest, and you know the nice part about this mini? All I've really done is contrast paints up until this point. This is a case of where the mini has got enough fun detail on it that I'm not really needing to do any real work. I'm just using some very basic techniques and letting the detail on the mini just do what it wants to do. You know, work with the mini and you'll have a much better time. And that's what I'm doing, and it's working out pretty damn well, I would say. It's nice and gross and disgusting. I don't know what other minis are going to be in the range, but I'm very, like, based on the way this one looks, I'm very, very curious. Especially if there's going to be some creepy pirate-themed minis. Yeah. It's like some of the monster art has this freaky, like, three-eyed parrot that made me very happy. Alright, and then we can see as that base has started to dry, I think that Garagak's Sewer was the right call. Because with that zenithal highlighting on the base, we're starting to get... We'll do some dry brushing on that to build it up later on, but that's already starting to look pretty damn nice. And again, I love the sculpting on that base too. The wheel tracks, for some reason those wheel tracks are really satisfying to me. I don't really see a lot of detail like that on bases. You see a lot of, you know, tactical rocks and stuff like that, and fancy, grandiose things that people stand on all heroic, but you don't see a lot of just stuff gouged in dirt. I don't know why that particular detail is standing out to me as something that I really like, but yeah, it is, and I do. Alright. So I think what we are good to do now is now comes the part where I want to slow it down and be a bit careful. And I'm actually going to break out one of my fancy brushes for this bit. Out come the Artis Opus. I'm going to use a size 0 for this. And let's think, what color do I want to use for this? I think, because I want to build up to a very fleshy Doomball brown. Doomball will be perfect. Where's my tusk? I think this is what we're going to... I think, yeah, if we go from Doomball brown and layer it up to Tuskgore fur, I think that's going to work. Because it's got that kind of reddish brown. So I don't want to go up to like a pale flesh tone, because it's muscle. The thing has no skin. So we want to keep some of that nice reddish grossness. But we also want to highlight it. And I don't want to highlight it to a vibrant red, because I think that'll make it look too cartoony. Which, if that's the vibe you want, fantastic, go for it. but that's not the style I want this one for the way I'm painting it. So we're going to try this and see how this works. So let's just get some of that onto the brush. Let me pick a place in the back just to test this out. Here we go. This is where I start being very delicate, because it does have these intricate muscle patterns on it. Just very carefully, just run along. I almost considered trying to dry brush this, but I don't think they're quite deep enough for that to work. Just gonna try and just follow some of the contours. Just pick this out. Let's go on the side of this leg here. We're going to work with gravity, bring the brush down towards us. There we go. This is a layer paint that I've thinned down quite a bit. Not quite to glaze consistency, but not too far off. And so as a result, it's subtle at this point, but that's what I want. Like, we're starting to build up some of this raised tone. I think after this stage, I may go back with a very thinned down wash of that Carroburg again, just to re-establish some of this. And again, I do apologize about the motorcycle noises outside. The downside to it being a slightly nicer day out is that that's even worse than usual now. I am beyond ready to move. Beyond ready. I've been super envious because I've been seeing all the pictures of Zero getting to set up the new lab. It's like, I want that. I want that. Hey, Mac, welcome in, and thank you. Yeah, isn't it terrifying? Isn't it gross? I love it. I love it. Pick out the abs. Again, just this is probably the part of this menu that's going to take the longest. But this is also one of those parts that's my favorite to work on because it's just slow and you can just take your time with it and you get into this kind of like zen state where it's kind of like coloring in the lines almost. It's, you know, back in simpler times as a child, you know, just focus on a nice bit of coloring in. Speaking of simpler times and being a child, by the way, I had my childhood rocked this week when I realized a change that has occurred back in the UK that I wasn't aware happened, and the way in which I realized it had happened was bizarre. So for some context, as I work on these muscles, there is a pro wrestler, Zack Sabre Jr., wrestles in Japan, British wrestler, who has a tendency to name his finishing moves the most ridiculous things possible that are obscure references to British culture and really long. And I don't remember the exact phrasing, but like a week or two ago, he busted out a move that had been called something like, "Why are all the Argos inside Sainsbury's now?" And which is an amazing move name. But that made me discover that Argos has been bought by Sainsbury's and isn't a thing anymore. And I should clarify what any of this means to anyone who lives outside of the UK, which is probably most of you. And I'm not surprised that Stephen had that reaction to it. Argos, when I was growing up, was a shop that you didn't go and look at things on the shelf. It has a catalogue. It's a catalogue store. You go in, you get the catalogue for free, and then you go into the shop and you fill out a ticket with the information from the catalogue, and then they go back and bring it out to you. And so for children of a certain vintage who grew up in the time period that I did, which I don't want to think about how long ago that was now, that was the thing. So that was what you did for Christmas, was, you know, you went through the Argos catalog and, you know, you picked out the things that you wanted to ask for Christmas. That was part of the Christmas process, was you went through the Argos catalog. And so, like, I knew that whole thing probably wasn't really much of a thing anymore. Which, if you think about it, really, that was kind of a precursor to ordering stuff online, right? Like, the principle is the same thing. Yeah, kind of like the Sears catalog here, except Sears it's not exactly the same, because Sears has a physical store that you go... I mean, Argos has a physical store, but you go buy things off the shelf at Sears. Whereas Argos, you can't buy anything off the shelf. But yeah, and then so that was then how I learned that Sainsbury's, the grocery store chain, or the supermarket, have bought Argos, and now they just exist inside Sainsbury's. And I don't know, it's just another one of those cultural milestones of my childhood that doesn't exist anymore. It's just one of those moments of loss, you know, like nothing that was ever going to really be relevant to my life again, but it was sad to realize it's gone. Just that sad reminder of this aspect of life when you were a kid is gone forever. They just, okay, they're glad there's still at least some stores. That's good. That makes me feel slightly better. Edinburgh one's still there. Oh, that's good. But yeah. Also, amazing name for a wrestling move. I love that Zack Sabre Jr. does that. His moves are ridiculous and they make me happy. Especially when you consider that, again, he wrestles in Japan. They have no context for this. He just does this shit because it amuses him. Which, you know, I respect that. You can then collect your Argos from any of the Sainsbury's instead of going to the Argos store in town. Yeah, I can see the benefit to it. It does kind of make it weirds me out a bit that it's Sainsbury's of all places. Which has now sent me which this whole thing sent me down another little memory childhood thing, and this is going to date me extensively for quite a few people, but do any of you remember the old like Tomy LCD games that were like cheap versions of like video games? They had like 3 frames of animation. I remember having a like Street Fighter one. It's just like the little like chip like bleep bleep bleep. I would have so many of those instead of the actual game. Because, you know, so many batteries burn through on those. It's like, the old kind of Game & Watch style. Back in my day, Back in my day. And a racing one, nice. Yeah, I remember having, I think it was, I had a Sonic Spinball one, I think. I remember the Street Fighter one. And it's also been making me wonder, with hitting that part where things that are retro, we're at that point where things that were in my childhood are now considered retro to the point where they're starting to come back again. Because I saw, as I was walking Kiros this morning out by the local cinema, a poster for the new Ninja Turtles movie. And it made me wonder, like, if we're due a resurgence of the old... Yeah, Disney did a ton of them. Of that craze in, like, the mid to late 80s, early 90s, of... Okay, Turtles did well. Let's make every show about anthropomorphic animals. Because the one that really stands out to me from those, that I actually would... It was so ridiculous and I kind of want to see a resurgence of, is Biker Mice from Mars. Beast Wars, although my ultimate one, Bucky O'Hare. I want to see Bucky O'Hare get a resurgence. I loved that show. I still insist that that had the best name for any spaceship ever, because their ship was called the Righteous Indignation. And that's an amazing name for a spaceship. All right, Mask? Yeah. I think a lot of my dwelling on this in my brain has absolutely been inspired by Stephanie Sterling, who continually at the start of her videos will bring out shit that she has obtained that is stuff from my childhood as well, because I think we're of a similar age. She continually brings out the Boglins. I loved Boglins. They were disgusting and creepy and they smelled weird, but, you know. I mean, maybe that's why I liked them, you know, I related. Thank God for them, indeed. If I ever get back to visit the UK again, I need to try and track down a wrestling show that Commander Sterling wrestles at. I loved seeing that they're getting to wrestle Kid Bandit. I wish I could see that. That'd be a fun match. All right. So with that done, where's Shut Up Deeper? We're gonna... I'm not going to go all the way up to Screaming Skull for these. Just going to add a Shabty Bone onto these. Boglin Revival would be amazing. From IGN, Ryan Reynolds inexplicably reviving Biker Mice from Mars and Elf. You know what? Power to him. Power to him. Yeah, like, yeah, it's that kind of, like, leads. I don't know which promotion she wrestles in. I don't think she's done it with, like, North Wrestling, but up in... Newcastle. Yeah, we were talking about Argos, Ren, and actually you probably were aware of the reference about how it's been in my brain after Zack Sabre Jr. named one of his recent finishing moves something like, why are all the Argos in Sainsbury's now? Again, amazing name for a move. Made me very happy. And also very sad because I realized all the Argos are in Sainsbury's now. But rather than rambling about obscure I suppose I should again talk about, well, bring up again the Kickstarter. If you have been lurking for a bit and didn't see it, there is a pinned comment or a pinned chat message for the Kickstarter page. It is going to be live in October, which is fitting because horror Halloween. It's not live yet, so I strongly recommend go click it, sign up to be notified when it goes live, because same thing of like, you know, we hear a lot, like Val says it a lot, Steven says it a lot, Fawn says it a lot. With indie video game developers, you go wishlist their stuff on Steam, it really helps them, and it doesn't cost you anything to do, because like you're committing, you have to buy it. Same principle applies here. If you go follow to be notified when it goes live on Kickstarter, that helps the Kickstarter algorithm and will help them get visibility on it. And I do really think this is a very, very cool project. Right. Full disclosure, yes, I am being paid to do this stream. This is a sponsored stream, but you all know me. There's a reason I'm not doing sponsored streams for, I don't know, Raid Shadow Legends, right? I think I'm doing this stuff because I will never do a sponsored stream for a product or a project I don't genuinely believe in. I carefully research everything that I want to showcase. And this has been no different. So, and again, I do, just as the example of some good, the example of the people doing this being, I genuinely think to be good people, in addition to all of the focus they've put in there on how they've been making sure to work with sensitivity consultants for the various areas they're focusing on showcasing in the game, particularly Indigenous American populations. This stream was originally supposed to happen at the end of July, and one of the two creators, the one who contacted me for this, proactively reached out and volunteered, hey, do you want to shift the stream back after seeing my social media post about what happened with Sanya? So that level of proactive care and thought made me feel really good about working with them. So, you know. And also, I think that just goes to show, if you just are a decent human being, people will want to work with you more. What a concept, right? If you're just a decent person, that helps. Yeah, it was real cool of them. I was surprised, and it's sad that it's kind of sad that I was surprised. Bit of an indictment towards the level of expectation I have around things like that, but you know, the fact it shouldn't be a surprise doesn't negate the fact it was, and was a pleasant one. So, whilst I wish that wasn't something that was exceptional, it is, and so it's worth praising and calling out. So, I really appreciated that level of consideration. Like I said, that's the type of behavior that makes me really want to work with people in future, and has made me more invested too. Like, you know, I didn't have to go through and do the whole press blurb read and showcase the art and do all this other stuff and do the additional social posts, but I'm doing it because I want to, because I want, you know, I think that it's a project that deserves to succeed, and that's the type of attitude I think needs to be rewarded. So, and I'm always happy to do that, especially because, again, they were very kind in reaching out to me. I am of a size that I don't exactly have people knocking down my door to work with me. And I know it's that catch-22, right? One of the things that probably does hold me back a bit is that I don't take every single opportunity that gets thrown, because I want to make sure that I only do things I think are relevant to the community and things I genuinely want to support. So yeah, the flip side to that is you always know if I'm doing something like this and showcasing it, it's because it's something I genuinely believe in. Alright. So we're going to dot in some of these eyes now, because the eyes, as you can see in the artwork over to the left of the screen there, are nice and gross and glowy. So we're going to run in just a wee bit of the old bold titanium white. Yep, the eyes, but it's okay, because look, they're solid white and yellow. They're glowy. They don't have pupils. They're the easy type of eye. getting a reputation for being discerning is probably good in the long run. It is. I mean, it is. I agree. Like, I think it's the question of how do you define success, right? How do you define, to you, what does that mean? And to me, that's more than just mere view numbers, right? It's, to me, success is building a a welcoming and inclusive community. It's cultivating a reputation that the people who come by your streams know that they can trust you, know what to expect, know that if you are showcasing something, it's going to be something that you actually have vetted and checked into. And that to me is worth more than just straight stream numbers. So I went a little over, but now what I'm going to do is just take some water and we're just going to brush some of this away from the edges. Just use the finger a little to even it out too. Because I want this to have that kind of glow around the edge. So I'm going to go a little bit, when I do this, I'm going to use a contrast yellow. I want to go a little extra beyond. But look, so they're going to be really vibrant, and look at how well those are popping on the camera right now. Even creepier. Even creepier. Alright. So I'm going to go with another run through of Carroburg. I just want to run that again into Carnage vibe. It does have some big Carnage vibes, right? I don't think that... Have they done Carnage in Marvel Crisis Protocol yet? I don't think they have. I don't think I've seen a Carnage mini in MCP, and I just realized he would make an amazing model. I don't think I've seen one. No Carnage yet? Huh. Well, I'm sure there will be at some point. Because, come on, it's Carnage. There we go. We're just going to... A little bit of extra highlighting. I'm very pleased with how this is all coming together. Coming along pretty well. And this is one of those things where honestly I'm being extra with it and just taking my time and having fun with it. But you honestly could have gotten away with just a quick coat of contrast and some highlights and call it good for a tabletop. Like if you wanted to batch paint some of these very quickly, and again, I don't know how many of these you're going to get into a set into the Kickstarter. Hey Prax, welcome, welcome. Oh, there is a Mysterio and Carnage double pack. That would be fun. Coming together nicely. Quick bit of tea. Stop for a spot of tea. I also don't know if the Gore is more focused in the New England-based expansion or the kind of more Gulf Coast expansion. Maybe it's in both. I don't know. That type of monster could easily fit just about anywhere. What I do want to do is we got the tongue hanging out there as well. So I want to bring the tongue out a little bit more. So let's grab some Screamer Pink. Let's just drop that in there for a minute. Yep, Screamer Pink. Paints have fun names. So we can, this is actually going to, I think, weirdly have the effect of darkening it a bit. But I am going to bring this up to a more pink. Yeah, that merged. Didn't do a huge amount of difference, and honestly, I probably could have gone straight with a more vibrant pink, but yeah. We're experimenting. We're just playing around and having fun. Oh yeah. What I do want to do is take some Berserker Bloodshade, this nice deep red. I'm going to run that into the mouth because I want the mouth to, the inner of the mouth to kind of stand out a bit. I was briefly debating shading it in black, and I still might. Let's see how this goes first, though. Just a slightly deeper, darker red. We're just going to pop this into the mouth there. Yeah, actually, I think that's going to work out, because now it's just that little extra bit of shading in there. I wanted to make it really dark in the mouth so that the fangs and the tongue pop a little more once that dries. I think that was sensible. That worked. All right, let's go back to now our Tusk Gore fur, which this is going to be for an additional highlight on the muscles. Again, I know it's labeled a fur color, but I think this is a really good fleshy tone. Thin that down, not quite to glaze consistency, but make it nice and thin. Looks pretty good. We go back to our Artis Opus 00, or single 0 rather, just a 0. I feel if I keep saying that I'm going to summon Suggester. All right, and now same type of thing, but this time I'm going to look for just some of the more highlighted muscles and really catch those, like this nice thick parts along the shoulder muscles. Really bring those out. Focusing mainly around where the light's catching. This is where that zenithal highlight. I think I thinned that down a bit too much. So let me take some from this side of the palette. If you were curious about the game system, by the way, and didn't want to just, and you're somebody who, like me, tends to learn better either by doing or watching than just reading, there are a bunch of actual plays on their YouTube channel as well, which are linked from various places. So if you want to go and check some of those out, which again, one of the things that made me feel good about working with them and part of the diligence that I did when checking them out, one of the first actual plays on that channel is a fundraiser being done for a trans charity. I believe it was Trans Lifeline Texas. I may be mistaken at that, but it was about a year ago. They did their first actual play they did as a fundraiser for a trans focused charity. So like, yep, okay, cool, yeah, that's a mark in your favor. Because unfortunately, you've always got to be very careful with stuff like that. Like, it's not necessarily always feasible when working with somebody to, you know, could you please fill out this questionnaire about where your social justice values lie to make sure that you're somebody I'm comfortable working with. Always feasible, unfortunately. Attack on Titan look. Oh no, I've been saying this whole time, especially the art style, and you know, it's the big bulky one in the middle whose bone kind of looks like a crown. That one's really giving me the Attack on Titan vibes. The sprint pose look from the show. I have to admit, I have never actually seen more than the first couple of episodes of Attack on Titan. it very quickly hit that part for me of this show is going to be extremely depressing, and that's not where I am mentally right now, so I don't want to watch it. It's nothing against the show. It's just the themes very much were, I need something a bit lighter right now. And by right now, I mean the last 3 or so years. It's emotional damage. So, yeah, that's what I've heard. That's what I've heard. It's one of the reasons why I, without getting into heavy spoilers, I got really heavy into My Hero Academia. But as it's approaching the end, it's taken some very dark turns. And it's like, okay, this is not what I was wanting from the cute manga about the superhero kids. Like, this is not, oh dear. Chibi show. I'll watch My Dress Up Darling instead. I think that's why one of my favorite thing that's come out recently has been, I mean, it's not exactly a controversial one given how popular it is, but Spy Family is top tier as far as I'm concerned. Love Spy Family. There we go. So we got some of those muscles highlighted, so now we're getting some of that extra variation in there. And it's pretty subtle, but it's really started to gradually build up those muscle groups, and this thing looks just real creepy. I love it. I'm very, very happy with how this is turning out. So many enemies do that. Well, go with the super dark turn right towards the end, when it's been fairly cute and reasonably light up until the final stretch. I mean, my favorite of all time, obviously, I've got an aesthetic, is One Piece, which has absolutely wrecked me emotionally multiple times, but does a good job of striking a balance. I don't ever see that one being something that's going to go just super grimdark at the end. My son is trying to sell me on reincarnated villainous one. I don't know which one that is. I've heard of a few lately that seem to be around that type of theme. Like, what's the one? Like, I've reincarnated as a slime or something like that? Is that the one? I think I've heard about some other stuff too. I don't know. So we're going to go back now around the last part. So we just got these hip bones that I saw looked like they were just kind of protruding, so I wanted to just sort of get those out there as well, because I like the idea of having some of the bone stick through as well on the hips. Like, here it's there with the spine, but I love the idea of some of the bone protruding through the flesh. He says, as he goes from talking about how he's been steering clear of depressing anime, talk about, I love it when the bone sticks through the flesh. Oh, hey, happy birthday, Bex. Happy early birthday to you. As a reminder, for those who don't recall, as the 1,000 subscriber celebration, when I read Knights of the Reach Around, that particular masterwork was written by Bex. And indeed, a masterwork it was. Let's think. Let's do Bugman's Glow for the tongue. Because I don't want to go pink, because I think pink is going to be a little too, again, kind of cartoony. But I think Bugman's Flesh will be a nice tongue color. Yes, happiest of birthdays to you. Reminds me, speaking of that in Final Fantasy, I need to log into FF14 at some point before Dragon Con, because I saw the summer event this year has some very Power Rangers themed glamour gear, and I want to get my hands on it. Master was definitely half of the appropriate word. A ding 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 ding. But seriously, that was so much fun to record. I want to do more stuff like that. Just get a little bit too around the jewel. Very carefully. There we go. Just really get the edges of those mouth picked out as a highlight. The Phoenix mount for the Rising event. Oh, I hadn't seen that one yet. So let's grab... Okay, now let me... I want to extend the art a bit. I want to drag this out just a bit. Because I want to see it for myself. Okay. Alright, so they got kind of a yellowy orange almost vibe. Okay. Let's try to decide what color I want to go with as far as contrast paints for the eye. So I think what we'll do... I'm contemplating. I think what I'll do... Thanks, Sparksy. Honestly, it is. I'm having a real great time with it. I said this is a good. It's been a good palette cleanser for me because I've been so heavy on the Shatterpoint stuff. Which, don't get me wrong, I've been having a blast doing. But I've been so heavily focused on it. I haven't done anything else. So this is a real good palette cleanser. Yeah, so what we're going to do is we'll take that Gryph-hound Orange, and that's going to be good for the outline. And then what I'm going to do when that dries, because we've lost some of that nice vibrancy, but that's okay, because what I'm going to do is dot some white again into the middle, and then just run the yellow over that. So hopefully we'll get like a gradient going. So whilst that's going, let's turn our attention back to this base a little bit. I want to take some Catachan flesh. I like that when I searched Backwater games on YouTube, the first video that popped up as a thumbnail that says, "We never sausage a sock." What? I don't know that that's... Is that them? Let me have a quick look. Actually, I should... double check this. Whilst I'm letting that dry, I'm going to grab a link to the playlists. There you go. There's the YouTube link. You can find that from their itch.io page as well. But there you are. Actually, oh, no, you are entirely correct. It's right there. All Kings Episode 1, we never sausage a sock. So yeah, nope, that's them. Don't have any context for what that is or why that's a phrase, but you know what? I respect it. I respect it. All right, so let's get a dry brush going. Some of this on the old palette. All right. Okay. Want to watch that? I mean, yeah, that's a great way to get attention, right? I'm curious. Okay, we're gonna just dry brush over the raised parts, and I'm also going to try and get this at least some ways up the feet, because we want to, again, make it all feel like part of this connected whole. So we want to get some of this dirt going up these exposed muscly legs. Doing a very heavy dry brush on this first part, and I'm going to go over it later with a... There we go. So let's just get the rest of that off, and we're going to move on from that to... Do I want to do Mournfang for this? I think Mournfang will work. Yeah, I think Mournfang will be a good highlight for this. So just grab some of that out, pop it onto the wet palette. Yep. Lightly. Especially again those like wheel tracks. I'm gonna really pick those out. And somewhat up the legs, just to blend it all together. Feel connected. Go. That works. So we've got just that little bit of extra texture detail showing in there. But I want to still, you know, but not too bright. We don't want to make it look, again, avoiding cartoony. I want to make it look like mud. Mud doesn't exactly highlight. What I am going to do, though, and unfortunately they don't make this anymore, so I bust this out very sparingly, but I still have a pot of Agrax Earthshade gloss, and I'm going to run that into some of these deeper parts so that it cuts, so that this will dry a little shiny, and so it'll make it look like wet mud. Again, unfortunately they don't make the gloss shades anymore, which makes me very sad. But I'm sure other companies have a similar product to fill the gap. I just haven't spent the time really to research who has a good replacement. I'm just going to run some of that through the deeper recesses of these tracks too. But yeah, when they Citadel redid or Games Workshop, Citadel redid their washes range at some point not too long ago, and you know, part of that was shrinking the size of the pot, so you now get less for the same amount of money, as we all see in all of the supermarkets. Same type of thing happens here. But yeah, they stopped doing the gloss range, so I was able to get, like, the guy who runs my local Warhammer store actually like went and dug a few out of the back after they had already pulled them off shelves and pulled one out for me special, so that was nice. All right, so let's get back in with that white. We're just going to dot in the eye. We're getting close to done, very close to done. Slipped a bit there and went larger than I intended, but let's just even them out because we're going to get that kind of glow in there, so it'll be all right. I'm very pleased with that decision to put the Berserker Bloodshade in there, because you can kind of see how that has now made that mouth so much darker. Been in the market for some different horror TTRPG systems, so I think I'll pick up the PDF. Nice, yeah, it seems like different to Call of Cthulhu, and I haven't heard of Cult. But yeah, and again, if you want to try it out, they have a free quick start that you can take a look at. It's on itch. And they have a single player version that you can kind of go through to test it out as well, so which I think is a really cool idea. Yeah, like I said, the stuff that they've got is fantastic. Sorry, I'm just having that moment again of which yellow do I want to use. I think I want to do is I want us to pop. Let's use Imperial Fist. Always forget itch for TTR. Yeah, I always do. I always associate itch with video games. I always forget about it in the context of TTRPGs. But it's an amazing resource for indie publishers. So I'm awful at remembering it exists for that, and I really need to do better. So now we've got a little bit of that fading to orange in there, but those yellow eyes are back and popping. We're gonna just pop some around the edges too, just so we can get that kind of glowing effect, which will be subtle, but subtle is good. We like subtle. There we go. Just about done. I think the only thing I need to do now to really wrap our boy out is finish up the edge of the space. So let's grab Dryad Bark for that, I think. Shake that up. Our larger brushes for this. I frequently use black for the edge of bases, but sometimes if I'm doing a very like brown mud type thing, I like using a dark brown for it. I think it just adds a little bit extra variation. It has the same effect, but isn't quite as stark as a pure black. So sometimes it can be a bit of a nicer effect. And I think that's what I want to go for here. I did the same thing when I painted my Auric Cruel Boys, which were swamp-based themed. I gave them dark brown rims, and I think it worked out fairly well. So I'm gonna do the same type of thing here since we got this mud. Go all around the edge. What I probably should have done was file down the edge of the base a little bit, but it's fine. If I wanted to go really extra, I would do the same thing I did with the Cruel Boys, which is take some of this nice UV resin I have from Green Stuff World. That's great for making little like pools of water on model bases, but that's a little bit beyond where I want to take this. I don't want to make it look like he's in water, I just want to make it look like damp mud. And you can kind of see now the light picks up a little bit. It's subtle, but I don't know how well the camera is really picking it up. But inside those mud holes now, there's just that slight bit of reflection to them from that gloss. I think there's one more thing I'm going to do, which is go back to just the Mournfang, because there's these like peaks. I want to just highlight those just a little bit more. I don't think those quite stand out the way I want them to. It's just a little bit more Mournfang. too. Cover the foot a little heavier. There we go. There we go. That's kind of blended up on those feet. Debatings. You know, I'm going to do one more thing, which is I'm going to apply just a wash of Seraphim Sepia over the claws. Because I was looking at it, it's like the claws, I like that they are prominent because they look dangerous, but they're a little too clean. So I want to apply just a sepia wash over them just to knock them back just a little bit. Thanks, Martimus. Appreciate it. And as I say, it's great fun to paint this model. Because this way they'll still be really prominent against the rest, but they're a little too bright. They're a little too clean. I want them to look nice and diseased and just gross. I just want them to look disgusting. Just slap some Seraphim Sepia over them, and there we go. Yeah, I'm pleased with that. So it's, again, subtle. They're still really prominent and dangerous looking, but they're not quite as vibrant now. So I think I think that works better. I'm pleased with that. Again, if I wanted to be ridiculously extra, I could add some like blood effects to it, or something like Blood for the Blood God, but I don't think I want to go quite that far with it. Especially because with this being a mini that's not going to be released for a while, I don't want to add a bunch of extra detailing to it that's not on the model. Because I don't think that's a fair representation of it. But that is done. Our gore is complete. Oh, I need to do the same on the back. Aha! Almost forgot. I forgot about the bone on the back, and that one we definitely want to knock back a bit. Like, oh yeah, that's very, very prominent, isn't it? Let's do the same thing here. We're just gonna knock that back. And there we go. Yeah, now it's much more like it's a part of it. As someone who got stuck in mud to my knees this week, it does look spot on. Oh, yeah, I have traipsed through many a mud field in my day. I am well aware. Alright, so let me just pop this off. Oh, I spoke about this on the previous stream, by the way. This is that museum tack that I was talking about. Look how easy that comes off. Holds it on real well. Comes off ridiculously easy. So thanks to Zajesta for that particular tip. Really, really works well. Love it. All right. And there we have our gore. Complete and ready to torment the Heartlands. So again, thank you so much to we're a little early for a 2-hour stream, but screw it, I'm going to call it. Thank you again to Backwoods for sponsoring this again. Right here, maybe at least it is an OBS. I don't know if I'm pointing to it in chat on my screen, but pinned in chat anyway is the link to the Kickstarter. Again, do please go and give it a follow. Really helps them out, shows interest in it. Again, you're not committing to back it, you're just showing interest in it, and it really helps with the Kickstarter algorithms, with all of that type of stuff. Check out the offerings. I think it's a really cool system. I haven't gotten to play it myself, admittedly, but I've looked through some stuff. I think there's some cool concepts in there. And I think as a setting that explores this type of area, the fact that they're doing it with sensitivity consultants and making sure to hire people who have lived experience in these areas, because this is a time period that is still in living memory for some people, and certainly aspects of things that happened during that time in history very much impact people's lives today. Very important to do that. So love that they've done that, and I think that's something that's worth supporting. So yeah, thank you all for being here again. Thank you to them for sponsoring this. This was really fun. I love painting the mini. Photos will be up in all the usual social places. And yeah, I'm going to end the YouTube VOD here, so thank you. Check out other stuff on the channel. We've got all the Shatterpoint tutorials, various Let's Plays. Go hang out, look at some stuff. I'm really bad at